Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's live on becoming a high value woman. It's me, Sherry Brazier, and Ruth Liebel here with you today. We are talking about becoming a high value woman while using submission to your advantage. So this one is going to be good. So we're a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties trying to get all of the Zoom and Facebook and stuff connected, but we're here. Sorry we're late for those of you that are waiting for us to come on and you were waiting and we weren't there. So sorry. But we are here now and we're going to get rolling on our topic. And I'm Sherry Brazier and I'm a life and style coach. And this is Ruth Liebel, and she is a financial coach helping couples get on the same page with their finances. And we are going to be your host today for this topic. So we're just going to go right into it. We're hoping to keep this at about 30 minutes. So we'll see how we do. So Ruth, let's talk about what is submission and what is it not.
Okay. So submission, for me, submission is a voluntary giving or like lending of your power. You cannot submit if you don't have power. So the fact that you are submitting, it indicates you have power. You don't have to. You could do something all by yourself, but it's like you're deferring your power to something else so that you can get something bigger or better than you could on your own. But
I love that definition because the way that you said it obviously is that you have power to give, that you
Yes.
have something to give. And I think a lot of people, and I've had conversations even today where women really bristle with the word submission because they feel like they are made to give something up, that we are expected to give something up. We're expected to give over our control. We have to give away whatever, right? And that's what we focus on, is the giving away. But I think that what we really need to focus on is that we had it to begin with.
yes,
We had it first
yes,
to begin with. And then we get to make a decision of whether we give it away or whether we lend it or whether we offer it. Those are all different kinds of words.
Mhm.
And then I also think that there's a lot of unrighteous taking
Mhm.
and then unrighteous submission
Yes,
because of the unrighteous taking.
yes,
It's all kind of messy.
yes.
So I love your definition of understanding that you had it to begin with. You had the control and then you relinquished it.
Yes. And this is something for, like, if you sit in yourself, you can confidently say, women, it kind of goes back to the boundaries. If you can't say no, you can't say yes.
Mhm.
If your no is unacceptable, then your yes is meaningless. So if your no is unacceptable, you're dealing with a tyrant.
Mhm.
And also, like, take the flip. Men submit to us all the time. And if we don't accept their no when it's appropriate, then we're tyrannical.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know if we want to talk about how men submit to women. Maybe that will make us feel better or look at it differently. But when it's to our advantage, when it is our calling to submit our power this time, or in this situation, or in this role, or in this, whatever word you like, whatever word feels good to you, when it's our turn to choose to do it because you have the option,
Mhm.
is when you become powerful. If you are quitting, if you are giving in, if you feel like you have no other choice, because somebody is manipulative, or you have a misconstrued in your mind, like, I'm a bad wife if I don't, I'm a bad mom if I don't, I'm a bad Christian if I don't. Like, if it comes from a place of shame or manipulation, whether it's in your head or from external things, it's still not submission. Submission has to be a voluntary choice because there is a legit other option.
Yeah, I like it. And I think that the problem is women, like the conversation that I was having earlier was like, I think a lot of women feel in their own minds that they are inferior to their husbands. And we've talked about in our past lives about this parent-child relationship that we get ourselves into in marriages. And I don't think that is godly. I don't think that that's what God intended for us in our marriages. I don't think that's the dynamic that he wants to have happening in our marriages. So for me, that means that we've got some work to do as a couple, if that's what we are operating from. That just means that we're not doing it the best that we can. We're not doing it the way that God intended. Now, that's not to shame us or to, make us feel like, we can't get it right. It just means sometimes we need to have things pointed out to us. Hey, you're not doing that right. You would be happier if you were doing it a different way. And I don't know what that answer is for everybody. I just know what it is for me. But I think what answer would be sufficient for everyone is to go to God and ask, what is it? What do I need to clean up? What do I need to work on? And then I think submission comes into play there too. When God gives you an answer, are you going to give over your will to him? Because you have a choice of whether you do it or not.
Yeah. And not the sticky, like sometimes when people say that, like, you cannot do it if you don't want to. It's just your eternal salvation is on the line if you don't. So it's your choice. Like, I hate that garbage. We don't play that game. That's not really a choice.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you really can choose. There are outcomes. Sometimes the outcomes are more immediately obvious and sometimes they're not. I don't know how I feel about that. Is it, but like, you get to choose, you get to orchestrate and design, architecture. I almost want to say a different word. You get to design, but architecture, whatever that word is. But you get to pick your life. Like, you make the blueprint of your life and then you build your life according to that blueprint because that's the end result you want. And we've had relationships around for a long time. And as social sciences get better and as people communicate and as we understand humanity and social science and psychology and relationships better, we get it better. So old information that is not healthful, ditch it. Just ditch it.
And I think you're right. Like, if you've gotten information that isn't helpful, then you should find different information that helps better. Or try to understand whatever it is that is hurting, because it might just be a misunderstanding. It might be a misinterpretation by generations before you that misinterpreted it, or you misinterpreted it yourself, or your husband misinterprets it, or your bishop misinterprets it, or who knows, whoever, right?
Your mom, your sisters,
your sisters, whoever it is. Maybe.
Yeah.
There's lots of interpretation that we are able to have. And I think that's a good thing, but sometimes it's someone else's interpretation and it doesn't work for us. And I gave Ruth this thought that I had this morning, and I've had this thought for years. I just hadn't articulated it until this morning. And I don't know that I'm going to articulate it very well here either, but the gist of it is, all of my life, I can't even remember when I first started to consider myself a woman that's different than a man, and when all that started happening. I mean, years and years and years ago, right? And what is my worth and my value? I would assume it was probably around, middle school age. And just through the years since then, hearing people's views and, the world's views, and just organizations and different people views on men and women and their place in the world, I always had this like cognitive dissonance is the only thing I can think of. It's just like when something comes in and you just know it in your soul that it's not right and you can't figure out what it is, don't really have words for it, but you just know it's not right. And so it's almost like it just bounces off because it doesn't ever stick. It doesn't feel right to me, and it
the
never
connections,
has.
you can't, the pieces don't fit.
Yeah, the pieces just don't fit for me. And it's because like the thing that doesn't fit is that me as a woman, I should be more like a man to be acceptable and valuable. And that I should do things like men do it. And if I can't do it like a man does it, I'm not worth it. Like that just has never set well for me. It just, the pieces don't work together for me. And I've had this in my mind, but I hadn't been able to put words to it until today. And it's because it's this: God thought enough of women and enough of me that he gave me the responsibility and the privilege to carry humans and to make humans, to create life from my own body
and sustain it from your
sustain
body.
it from my body. And he didn't give that to men, he gave that to women. That is a pretty important piece of the world of procreation, of the plan, whoever's plan you want to even talk about. It is a pretty important thing. I would say the most important thing. Now, we need men to make that happen, obviously. So men do have a part in that to make that baby a reality. But he gave that responsibility to women. And if the man is, smoking and drinking and bringing substances into his body, doesn't affect the baby. But if I bring in substances into my body while I'm pregnant, it 100% always and forever will make some kind of an impact on the baby. Doesn't matter the level, it will impact the baby. So whatever it is that I do or don't do, 100% affects the baby, the fetus and the baby. And I feel like that is the ultimate responsibility. So I just can't get on board with that I'm not valuable and that men are more valuable than I am, and that I should always submit to the man because he's the one that knows more, or that he's, more valuable, or whatever it is that is being taught in any circumstance or meeting of any kind, whatever. I just can't get, that's just not right. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. It just isn't right. God does not think that. That is not what he meant. That's not, like, we have misinterpreted that whole thing because it can't be true. He gave women the responsibility of creating life. He holds us at the highest esteem.
Yes. Yes.
So if we are giving over we're submitting and we're giving over our control and our power because we're less than, then that is on our own understanding to fix, because that's not godly. That's not what he meant. That's not what he wants. So that is our responsibility to find that out for ourselves so that we can, emulate and talk to others about it and how we feel about it.
Yes. And I think that this part is tricky because we have millennia of teaching and cultural practice otherwise. And this is my piece with it. We have two powers. We have a godly power, and then we have the adversarial dark evil power, right? And both of these powers understands the purpose of life and the potential of each human being. And they want to use that potential for their mission. God's mission is to bring us joy and everlasting life and peace. And the adversarial power, his joy, his mission is to make us miserable like unto himself. He's declared it. Like that is sociopathy, narcissism, like that. That is the mission, is to just leech everything good into the black hole that is that power until nobody has anything. We are all just blobs of blah, right?
Of goo.
That's the mission, right? So over here, this godly power, it is an abundant. It's like you give something and it is multiplied and shared out. And you give something over here to this black hole of adversary darkness, and it just sucks it in and shreds it up. And there's nothing but just leeching. It's the feeling of leeching. And over here is the feeling of like rejuvenation. So when you're working through it, just understand, like if both powers understand us, then it is in the adversary's interest to, and he's the father of lies. Mm-hmm. So if he understands where goodness and power is, he will attack it. Like what's the thing in Harry Potter, the like dark floating thing that comes and like sucks things away with the kiss of death? What is that?
I don't know. I haven't watched Harry Potter.
A Dementor. Okay. So it's like the Dementor, it senses joy and it has to come devour it. Like it hunts it out. So if there's any kind of joy, it will hunt it, and it just brings like grossness. It's like a tracking dog. It smells the hot dogs and it is on you. So if women are powerful, then it is in the adversarial's best interest to make sure that understanding is just not
annihilated.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. And that's what I've noticed in my life. The higher that, like, and you can feel it, like you can feel when somebody starts to say something or do something or treat you a certain way or treat other people a certain way. Like you can just feel that like red flagness. Mm-hmm. And the like flushed face, maybe like you can just feel that presence coming in and just being like, yes, believe this, believe this, believe this. So he's just been very effective at pecking at that right away, because if we can diminish women from the beginning, that the explosiveness that happens with that is epic. Mm-hmm. So like you can just, the more that like lying manipulator is like, I swear this is the way it is, like this, the more effort it takes to like make you believe that lie, then you know, like, okay, that's a lie. So you can just mm-hmm. Women are very powerful, and mm-hmm. the same lies that have diminished women to women and in ourselves, it's the same lies that have cheated men. Mm-hmm. You know, men believe it too. Men are subject to the same lies. Mm-hmm. It's not that men have been against women this whole time. Like both sides have believed this lie for a long time, and we don't have to believe it anymore. Mm-hmm. We don't have to.
And it's all about, you know, we've talked in other episodes about women teach other women how to be women.
Yes.
And so that's our goal here, is to help other women learn how to be good women, right? To bring it, you know, rising tide rises all boats, right? The rising tide lifts all boats. That's our main objective, right? But our other objective is to teach men as well, is to educate men as well how to be the higher value man, so that their relationship with their wife, with their partners, can be better. Because I have had my relationship in the dumps. Like we've gone through lots of, you know, trying times. I can think of one in particular that like was, I don't think we have ever been as close to calling it quits as we were at that point. And it was rough. And it was, I don't want to have it end again. I don't want to do that again. Mm-hmm. However, because we were able to work through it and we stuck together and we had each other's best interest, it wasn't me for me and him for him. We wanted this to work, that we did the work to get to where we are now, mm-hmm. which I could have never imagined that we are where we are now. And it is because we had that road bump,
Mhm.
you know, and we decided to stick it out. We wanted to make this work, and not saying that we wouldn't have been happy if we would have gotten divorced, and like, who knows, right? I'm not here to say whether, it's good to be divorced or not. Like, I don't know. That's a whole nother topic. But for me, for us, for our relationship, we wanted to make it work. And it was a lot of work, and it still is. And it's a lot of patterning that we had to look at and unsee and change and learn. And, he submits to me all the time. I think that's another thing that really we don't talk about, is how much men submit to women.
Mhm.
And when we realize how much our men submit to us, maybe it will soften the edges of when people say that women have to submit to men,
Mhm. Yes.
because he submits to me all the time,
Yes.
way more than I submit to him, actually. That's just our own relationship. So I don't know. And I think maybe my personality is such that I wouldn't let him bulldoze me over. Like, so
Okay, well, let's
anyway,
talk about that. Let's throw out some examples of
yeah.
when submission, when it's healthy and when it's not. Because my kind of brain, if this is a new subject to me, and I'm like, but wait, what do you mean? Then I love examples.
Yeah, let's do some examples.
Okay. Let's see. I mean, the immediate one, like we can just talk about sex, right? Like the male body stereotypically is designed to be ready at a moment's notice, right? And they have that testosterone kicking into their body frequently, that frequently sends signals like, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it,
Mhm.
let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, right?
Mhm.
But the female body stereotypically needs a little bit more, it needs a little bit more working into it. And some women's bodies, like they aren't interested in it until it is like into it.
Mhm.
So you just got to figure it out. But the idea that a woman shouldn't have sex with her husband unless her body is desiring it too, that is maybe a disservice to both of them.
Mhm.
But one thing that helped me with our sex life is my husband gives me, or when we first got married, especially, he would give me massages all the time. Foot massages, especially when I was pregnant. He was so good to me. My first pregnancy, he was so good. Just hand massages or neck massages or back massages or things like that. He got nothing out of it. It was just an act of service, right? Things like he would take out the trash, or he would install something for me, or he would carry the big boxes, or he would things like that. He'd empty the dishwasher if he saw it. So there are little acts of service that we could submit to all the time. So having sex with my husband, even if my body isn't like craving it in the moment, I just look at it as something else that I do to show him that I love him, because it makes his life beautiful.
Mhm.
And this kind of energy and giving, it creates this circular giving, right? It is this circular giving. I love him in all kinds of acts, and then he loves me in all kinds of acts. So even if my body never gets into the desire for the act of sex, I can still lovingly have this kind of intimate interaction with him to show him that I love him. And it's just an important piece of this give and take in this relationship that we have. So I submit to him, and I have defined myself, the circumstances, the numbers of times, the context. I have defined in myself when I can lovingly submit this to him and when I cannot.
Mhm.
Okay. If it ever becomes a weapon, like I submitted to you, I'm always submitting to you, then that's not submission, right? Because
Mhm.
submission is a willful
Mhm.
giving over.
That's manipulation.
Yes, that's manipulation. That's a weaponizing something.
Yep.
That's not submission. That
Mhm.
is not in your best interest. So if you cannot willfully give it over, don't do it.
Mhm.
Show that you don't, right? And sometimes part of that, like willfully giving, is the willfully withholding. You have to prove to yourself that it is your property to own, especially if you've been in a situation where mom or dad or husband or brother or pastor or whatever is saying you have to give, you have to give, you have to give. you have to show that you own the property before you can like give it over, so sometimes that might be a piece of it, but if you cannot willfully be like, yeah, I totally shared that candy bar with you, I totally had sex with you, I totally made the bed, I totally made dinner, I totally went grocery shopping, I totally went to work because I want bigger than I can by myself, I'm putting into this relationship or family pot or like whatever it is, I'm submitting to this friendship, like whatever. If it's not a willful handing over, then it's not submission and it's not love. It's
Mhm.
just gross, weird, hand twisted. I don't know.
Well, it's a form of manipulation.
Yeah.
Whether it's a form of manipulation on the taker's part
Mhm.
or whether it's a form of manipulation on the giver's part.
Yep.
Because even though we might feel like we don't have a choice, we are choosing to not have the consequence of not doing the thing.
Yeah.
That is a choice.
Yes.
Whether we say that, well, if I don't do this, then I'm going to get whatever in return. Well, you can have the whatever in return. That is a choice that you have. And if you don't want that, that's fine. But you chose not to have that. You chose to give the other option a try so that you wouldn't have this other thing. So that is kind of the version of you have to tell yourself and make sure that you understand that you own the property.
Mhm.
Like you own it. And if you don't own it, then you need to understand what is yours that you own and then decide what you're going to give and what you're not. And we could go on and on about the conversation with the relationships in our marriages, because that could be a sticky place because our egos get involved
Mhm.
and pride gets involved and there's all kinds of stuff that get involved.
Yeah.
So what's another one? Having kids.
Mhm. Having
I submitted my body to having kids.
Yep.
It is not at all like it used to be before
Yeah.
having kids.
And the concept that you can just at nighttime, if you put your head on that pillow, you get to sleep until you wake up.
Mm-mm.
Or yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
It's a submission
Mm-hmm.
and it's a choice.
And I willfully did it. And I'm over the last several years, I've been trying to change my thoughts around my own body and my thoughts around women's bodies in general.
Mhm.
And when I see a woman that looks like she's had children, that means that she's not what you'd call magazine fit.
Mhm.
I look at that and I think she's had children. And I look at her more endearingly that because she's given up her body to have children. She has submitted her body so that she can bring life into this world.
Mhm.
And that is, no matter what the circumstances around it are, I think that's always beautiful. So then therefore the lumps, the bumps, the belly pooch, the mom pooch, the whatever, I just think we all need to look at it as it's endearing. We gave our bodies to create human life.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It was our body. We used our body for one of the big purposes it was created.
Mhm.
It's kind of like buying a new pair of awesome shoes and then leaving it in the box because it's like too pretty to wear or something.
Mhm.
Not totally like that, but it can be like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. What else do you have on your list?
I put down keep my mouth shut during family conversations, but I don't remember specifically what I was talking about that one.
I think when we were talking about it, it was kind of like taking an internal, like check internally to see if what I'm going to say or what I want to say is going to add to the discussion, or if it just is my way of inserting myself
Okay.
in the
Or-
conversation.
Or it might have been, when we talked about this last time. So a while ago, I sent an email to like family and friends. I had two different levels of either like people who were super close
That's right.
or people who knew me kind of casually. And I just asked them, I knew it was time for me to get better at something, just time to get better, but I didn't know what was the most important thing for me to get better at. So I was like, well, how about this? So I sent these emails to people saying, can you please tell me how I show up for you? The good, the bad, the ugly, like, just let me know. I'm trying to work on things. Like, I can't remember exactly what the email said, give me 3 things or 12 things, or I don't remember what it was that I wrote. It was a couple of years ago. And only a few people sent me back feedback. I think people are scared of sending feedback because they're afraid of like hurting feelings. But I was like, I really want to know. It's helpful to me that you tell me anyway. So some of the feedback that came back to me was, people have lost respect for people. They've lost respect for me because my husband will make comments to me in public, like around them, not like public, but like around people. And I don't immediately turn and like snap back and defend myself. So in their appearance, like it appears to them that I am just giving in or like putting up with these hangry comments or like kind of dirtbaggy comments or like whatever it is that, we say stuff that we're like, but I always address it later. Like if it still nags me, if I'm like, that really hurt my feelings, then I address it later, away from people, pillow talk, after dinner, like whatever it is. If it's something that I really did not like, then I will address it with him at a different time, not in front of people. So in that way, I submit, and I still do it, even though I know that people are repeatedly saying, I lose respect for you when you don't stand up for yourself. I am submitting to my marriage and the health of my relationship with my husband, because it is better for my relationship and with him that I handle it the way I handle it, rather than like doing the pecking right back. It's just unbecoming to me it's not helpful. It doesn't make the conflict better. So in that way, I submit to the health of my relationship, rather than submitting to what other people want me to handle conflict in that method. So
what other people think about you.
yes.
Like what you're saying is you have decided, you have looked at all of the options, and you have decided that what is important to you is the way that you handle the relationship with your husband,
Yes.
not what other people think of you.
Yes.
You have
Because of how
intentionally
I want,
decided.
I do not want to be the wife and the couple that sits there and like heckles back and forth in front of people in a non-productive fashion. When I handle conflict, I want it to be very thought out and methodical. And I want to put us both in a situation where we can be our best selves when handling the conflict, because I only handle conflict that is worth addressing. And if I choose to address it, I want to address it in the most productive fashion.
Yes. And I think that a lot of people get sidetracked and don't understand that in certain situations, the only response that the other person has is defense. And then you have to be on the offense. Like then you have to, when there's a victim, there always has to be a villain.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, that doesn't resolve conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can exacerbate it, in fact.
Yeah.
So in that way, I've chosen to submit to the health of my marriage rather than defending myself in public.
Okay, let's do one more.
Okay, another one that I thought of. So here's a good one. At the beginning of this year, when I met you, right, it was my goal to get my physical crap back together. We'd moved 1,000 times. I'd had a bunch of babies, just a lot of stress, single parenting, like all the things. And it was just time for me to finally like tap back into my athletic self and get my physical appearance together and like care in that regard. And it was also working on my business. I was doing a bunch of things, and I was frustrated that my husband was not helping with our youngest son, who was still at home, the way we had talked about him doing when we always had these dreams and talked about the season of life. He was going to be the caretaker of the children. His hours were drastically reduced. it was just time for my business and my thing to be the focus. And I was hoping, and we talked about him, now giving to me that like domestic commitment, the way I had given to him for 15 years for him to chase his dreams. But things didn't pan out that way. He had more stuff on his table than we expected. And it's just not his internal drive. Like there's just stuff he wanted to go do. He finally wanted to breathe and go do all the things that he wanted to do. And I was super frustrated. And one of the things he wanted to do was gym time. And he likes to be at the gym. He loves to be at the gym. Like he's like at the gym, like 2 hours plus shower time. And I'm at workout 20 minutes and then I'm like bored, right? And I was super frustrated that he had all this time at the gym, but he couldn't help me with our son, right? And I was kind of spinning. I mean, I was spinning in this. And I worked with life coaches. I worked through all my skills. I pulled all my things, and it was not getting better. So then I had to decide what my options were. And in the end, I just decided to go to the gym with my husband 2 hours every day and do the gym thing with him, which when you look at it, how does that fix my problem? Why is that the thing to submit to? He promised me he was going to take care of our son. He promised me that it wasn't like me expecting something, like we'd had the conversation. He promised me, I will do this for you. So how does me going to the gym for 2 hours, why is that a thing to submit to? But I will tell you, there was something about going to the gym that filled him up in a way that neither of us knew that he was looking for. And suddenly he had time to take care of our 5-year-old. And it was an interest to him. It was like I submitted to that interest of his, and that's where he was. So that's where I was going to be. And it boomeranged something right back to me that he was now a bigger, better husband to me because I submitted to 2 hours at the gym every day. I mean, I did get in better shape, right? Like it was a benefit to me immediately. And then it was also like a synergistic benefit because I submitted to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, again, it was something that I could willfully do, not, well, he dragged me to the gym because he told me I was fat. Like,
Well, and like how I work with women, like I work with women all over the world, and it is a very common thing, guilt. And I feel guilty because he wants this and I don't want that, blah, blah, blah. And then we just sit and spin in that. And we never actually take ourselves out of that guilt and intentionally decide, what do I want? And you intentionally decided that you wanted a relationship with your husband. And we talked about how are all the ways that you can have the relationship that you want with your husband. And this came up. He wants me to go to the gym with him, but we talked about all of that. And it came back to, well, do you want to have a relationship with your husband? This is one of the ways. Do you want to try it or not? Like you get to choose if you want to try it or not. Like, what would it look like if you tried it? And then you work through all of these things like, well, this would be a benefit and that would be a benefit. And maybe I do want this. And you kind of came around to, I think we actually might want the same thing. Weird, but we just might want the same thing. And maybe what I want, I'm going to get, just not in the way that I thought I was going to get it. And he actually wants to give me what I want, just maybe not the way I thought that he would give it to me. But we will never be able to access that part of the brain if we spin out in guilt and he said he would, and he's not holding up his end of the bargain. As long as we keep into that spiral, we will never open up the capacity in our own brains to come up with what would actually work for us.
Yeah.
And then willfully submit.
Yeah.
That's how we use submission to our advantage.
Yep. Because in all of the situations where I submit, I get what I want in the end. Would I love to be able to turn around and just heckle right back at him? Sure. Absolutely. Do I love that he can poke at me And people don't say, well, actually they do. I mean, that's why they lose respect for me, is because that kind of behavior is disrespectful, like to, heckle at your wife. But it's just more unbecoming of the wife, because I'm either the nag or I'm the, this, what, right.
Mhm.
So it just is not, but in all the situations where I submit, I get what I want.
Mhm.
In the end, I get what I want. My husband adores me. He adores me, and he will do pretty much anything I ask him to.
Mhm. Same.
Right. Because I made it a pattern of figuring out how to get him what he wants and how to submit to the bigger, better thing. And it's a trek getting here.
Mhm.
It's a trek. And there's also been times when I have stood fast and been like, I am absolutely unbending on this.
Mhm.
Unbending on this. So you just have to decide. But like, women have a pretty good intuition. And when you have like good intentions and you're willing to be honest with yourself, you will find the right move. But part of it is shutting out all of the unhelpful voices. And I will say, especially on submission, sometimes scriptures are unhealthy resources. If you read the scripture, especially Paul, the single man who's going to teach about relationships, right? If you read those scriptures and it makes you feel gross and be like, I have to do this, don't listen to him. If you can read that and be like, yes, this fills me with hope, I feel like this is my answer for a wife, then do it. But if you read anything and it makes you feel that red flaggy gross, like I cannot do this willfully, like totally like elevated in an abundant sort of energy, don't do it. Go
Mhm.
find some advice that you can do that gives you that same kind of like, yeah, this is something I would like to do. It might be hard, right? If you are reconstructing the way you do things, if you're reconstructing the way you think or the way you respond, it's going to be hard. I just finished hiring men to remodel my house. It is messy, and it is
Mhm.
messy for a long time, and it's loud and it's hard and it's confusing and there's some chaos. So when you rebuild something or you reframe something, it's a lot of work, but you want that end thing in the end. And just know, like, if you want good things, if you want to be a good person, if your goal is to be a good wife, if your goal is to be a good mother, and you just keep pursuing those little pieces of like, this feels good, this feels good, this feels like something I could try, like follow that, you will get there, as opposed to somebody told me I have to do this or I'm a bad mom. If you're running from being a bad mom instead of pursuing this feels good, this feels good, this feels good in that like good way, like you just know that like feminine intuition, chase that. You will get good answers. You are
Mhm.
designed to create life and preserve relationships.
Mhm. Yep, I love it. So good. Okay, we're at time. So we have lots more that we could talk about. I really wanted to talk about the not pulling the mom card when pride gets pricked. But we'll save that for another day.
Okay.
So we've got a couple of other things that we wanted to talk about when it comes to submission, and I think that this is a healthy topic to continue. So we'll do another version,
Mhm.
a
Okay.
part 2 or something, and we'll
Yes.
bring in some of those other things. So, okay. As always, put your comments in the comment section below, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook. We'd love to hear your comments. We've had lots of comments coming in and we love them all. So keep giving us comments and we'll see you next week. Okay, take care. Bye.